The ancient predecessor facility hummed with new life as human engineers worked alongside the awakened artificial intelligence systems. Captain Jake Morrison stood before a massive star map that showed the entire galaxy, with red dots marking every world under Zephyrian control. Operation Liberation begins in 6 hours, he announced to the assembled team of humans and aliens who had gathered at the facility. We will strike at every slave world simultaneously. This is the largest military operation in galactic history. Engineer Diane Foster had spent the past month learning to merge predecessor, human, and captured Zephyrian technology into weapons of incredible power. Her team had created devices that could disable Zephyrian control systems from orbit, freeing enslaved populations without destroying their infrastructure. The liberation devices are ready, she reported. Each one can break the control systems on an entire planet within minutes. But we need to get them close enough to work. Dr. Maria Santos had made an even more important discovery. Using predecessor technology, she had developed a communication network that could coordinate military actions across thousands of light years instantly. The network is active, she announced. Every resistance cell, every slave revolt, every hidden rebel base is now connected. Captain Morrison looked around the room at the beings who had come from across the galaxy to join the fight. There were Calarians with their crystal skin, Morphians who could change shape at will, Voltrans with their electrical abilities, and dozens of other species who had lived under Zephyrian rule for centuries. Today we end 3,000 years of slavery, Jake said. Not just for humans, but for everyone. The Zephyrians taught us that freedom must be taken, not given. Let's teach them what happens when an entire galaxy decides to be free. On Earth, Admiral Tony Clark commanded the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Ships built from human innovation and alien technology filled the space around the planet. The battle for Earth had lasted for weeks, but now it was time to take the fight to the enemy. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump, Tony ordered. Target, Zephyros Prime. It's time to end this war. The jump to the Zephyrian homeworld would normally take days, but using predecessor technology, the human fleet could cross the galaxy in hours. As they prepared to leave, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Operation Liberation had begun. On the mining world of Kepler-7, the slave revolt started exactly at the planned moment. Human strike teams appeared from hyperspace and immediately began broadcasting liberation signals. The Zephyrian control devices that kept the population enslaved shut down within minutes. Commander Lisa Carter, who had become the leader of liberation forces, watched as millions of beings tasted freedom for the first time in their lives. All worlds report successful liberation, she announced through the galaxy-wide network. The chains are broken. But the Zephyrians were not giving up without a fight. On their homeworld, General Kirtos assembled every available ship for a final defense. The crystal towers of Zephyros Prime bristled with weapons as the Empire prepared to make its last stand. They want to destroy everything we have built, Kirtos declared to his remaining forces. But we are the masters of this galaxy. We will not yield to inferior species led by primitive humans. High Counselor Vexathara watched the preparations with sadness. She had tried repeatedly to convince the military leaders to negotiate, but they refused to consider any option except total war. General, she said as the first reports of the human fleet's approach reached them, there is still time to end this peacefully. The humans have shown they prefer liberation to destruction. Peace? Kirtos laughed bitterly. They have destroyed our empire, freed our slaves, and turned the galaxy against us. There can be no peace with such beings. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Zephyros Prime, they found themselves facing not just Zephyrian ships, but vessels from dozens of species who had joined the liberation movement. The oppressed beings of the galaxy had come together in the largest alliance in recorded history, Admiral Clark opened communications with the planet below. Zephyros Prime. This is Admiral Tony Clark of the Earth Liberation Fleet. We demand the immediate surrender of all military forces and the establishment of democratic government. You will also provide reparations to all enslaved species. The response came from General Kirtos himself. Humans, you have doomed this galaxy to chaos. Without our guidance, these primitive species will destroy themselves within generations. Maybe, Tony replied calmly, but that will be their choice to make, not yours. The final battle began with Zephyrian ships launching desperate attacks against the Allied fleet. But the fighting was different now. The liberated species fought not just with weapons, but with knowledge. They knew Zephyrian tactics, technology, and weaknesses because they had been forced to serve the Empire for so long. Pilot Sarah Kim led a squadron of mixed fighters in an attack on the Zephyrian flagship. Her formation included Calarian crystal ships that could bend light around themselves, Morphean vessels that could change shape mid-flight, and human fighters that moved in ways that still confused enemy targeting systems. Remember, Sarah broadcast to her diverse squadron, we're not here to destroy them. We're here to free them too. The Zephyrian people are as much victims of their empire as anyone else. On the surface of Zephyros Prime, something unexpected was happening. Dr. Mel Andra, the Zephyrian scientist who had studied human psychology, was leading a group of her own people in revolt against their government. The humans have shown us something we had forgotten, she declared to the crowds gathering in the capital city. Democracy, freedom, the right to choose our own path. We do not have to follow leaders who bring only war and suffering. The revolt spread quickly through Zephyrian society. Citizens who had never questioned their government's right to rule suddenly saw alternatives. They watched as former slave species worked together as equals in the liberation fleet, and they began to imagine what their own society could become. General Kirtos found himself fighting a war on two fronts, against the liberation fleet in space and against his own people on the ground. When reports reached him that major cities were declaring independence from imperial rule, he realized that the war was already lost. The final moment came when High Counselor Vexithara appeared on the command bridge, accompanied by Dr. Mel Andra and representatives of the popular revolt. General, Vexithara said quietly, it is time to surrender. Our people have chosen freedom over empire. Kirtos looked around the bridge at officers who no longer met his eyes. Outside, the sounds of celebration could be heard as Zephyrians joined the galaxy-wide liberation. With a gesture of defeat, he shut down his weapons and opened communications with the human fleet. Admiral Clark, he said, his voice heavy with the weight of centuries of tradition ending. I surrender unconditionally. The Zephyrian Empire is no more. The celebrations that followed could be seen from space as cities across the galaxy lit up with joy. For the first time in 3,000 years, every being in the galaxy was free to choose their own destiny. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the assembly hall of the new Galactic Republic. Representatives from hundreds of worlds worked together to write laws that would prevent any species from dominating others again. Humans served not as rulers, but as advisors, sharing the lessons they had learned about democracy and freedom. High Counselor Vexithara, now serving as an elder advisor to the Republic, approached Jake during a break in the proceedings. Captain, she said, I owe you an apology. When I first heard the warnings about humans, I thought they spoke of a species that would bring destruction. I did not understand that sometimes destruction of evil is necessary for the creation of good. Jake smiled. The warnings were right, Counselor. Humans are dangerous. We're dangerous to anyone who thinks they have the right to enslave others. We're dangerous to anyone who believes might makes right. We're dangerous to tyrants and bullies and anyone who thinks freedom is something they can take away. As the assembly resumed its work, Jake looked out through the great windows at the stars. Somewhere out there, human exploration ships were already pushing beyond the galaxy's edge, carrying with them the knowledge that freedom was not just a human concept, but a universal right. The elders had warned about humans, and they had been right. Humans were the species that refused to yield, that grew stronger through adversity, and whose greatest weapon was their absolute refusal to accept defeat. But what the elders could never have predicted was that these same qualities would not bring destruction, but liberation. The galaxy was free, and it would remain free as long as there were beings willing to fight for that freedom. The humans had taught everyone the most important lesson of all, that no matter how powerful an oppressor might seem, they could never defeat a people who refused to surrender their hope. In schools across the galaxy, children of every species learned together, played together, and dreamed of a future where the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. And somewhere in those schools, young humans sat alongside young Zephyrians, Calarians, Morphians, and dozens of other species, all of them free to become whatever they chose to be. The warnings had come true. The first ship materialized between Mars and Jupiter like a mountain appearing out of thin air. It was massive, angular, and covered in dark metal that seemed to drink in the starlight. The alien sensors had shown nothing there moments before. But now a vessel nearly 2 kilometers long hung in space where empty void had been. Admiral Kethvar stared at the main display screen, his yellow eyes wide with disbelief. His 4 hands gripped the crystal railing so tightly that small cracks appeared in the material. "Report!" he demanded, his musical voice strained with stress. Sensor operator Vexcar worked frantically at his station. "Admiral, the vessel just appeared. No hyperspace signature, no energy buildup. It was just suddenly there." Before the Admiral could respond, another ship decloaked near Saturn. Then another appeared near Jupiter's moons. Within minutes, the human solar system was filled with massive warships that dwarfed even the largest Zephyrian vessels. Sub-Commander Yixtal counted the new contacts on her tactical display. 43 ships, Admiral, all of them larger than our flagship. The biggest one is showing as 2.1 kilometers in length. Kethvar felt his world collapsing around him. In 60 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. The intelligence reports had been completely wrong. The humans were not a primitive species with a handful of patrol boats. They had a battle fleet that could challenge the Empire itself. "How is this possible?" he whispered. On the bridge of the USS Liberty, Captain Morrison watched the alien fleet's formation begin to waver as the hidden human ships revealed themselves. The Zephyrian vessels, which had moved with perfect military precision just moments before, now seemed confused and uncertain. "Captain," reported Communications Officer Hayes, "Admiral Carter is requesting permission to address the alien fleet." "Put her through," Morrison replied. Admiral Lisa Carter's voice filled the communication channels of both fleets. Her tone was calm and professional, but there was steel underneath the words. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Admiral Lisa Carter of the Terran Defense Force. You are now surrounded and outgunned. I strongly recommend you halt your advance and consider withdrawing from our solar system." Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kethvar received that transmission like a physical blow. Surrounded. The word echoed in his mind as he looked at the tactical display. Red symbols representing human warships had appeared throughout the solar system. His fleet was indeed surrounded. "Admiral," Vexcar called out, his voice shaking. "I'm reading massive weapons arrays on all the human vessels. Energy signatures, unlike anything in our databases." Kethvar activated his communication system. "Admiral Carter, I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. How did you hide such a large fleet from our sensors?" Carter's response came quickly. "Admiral, humanity learned long ago that the galaxy can be a dangerous place. We have spent the last century preparing for the day when someone would come to our home and demand our surrender." The alien admiral looked around his command center. His crew stared back at him with expressions of fear and confusion. These were experienced warriors who had conquered star systems, but none of them had ever faced a situation like this. "Sub-Commander," Kethvar said quietly, "what is our tactical assessment?" Yixtal checked her displays before answering. "Admiral, we are outnumbered and outgunned. The human ships are larger than ours and appear to be heavily armed. If they have technology advanced enough to hide entire fleets from our sensors, we must assume their weapons are equally advanced." Captain Morrison's voice joined the conversation. "Admiral Kethvar, you asked how we hid our ships. The answer is simple. We've been watching the galaxy for a long time. We knew that eventually someone would come to Earth with demands like yours." Morrison paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. 50 years ago, we started building these ships in secret. Hidden shipyards in asteroid belts, weapons research facilities on the dark sides of moons, defense platforms disguised as mining stations. The human captain's voice took on a harder edge. "We studied every alien signal we could intercept. We learned about the Crimson Horde and the Machine Collective and all the other threats you mentioned. And we decided that if the galaxy was truly that dangerous, we needed to be ready." Admiral Kethvar felt something he had not experienced since his youth. Pure, overwhelming fear. The humans had not just hidden their ships. They had been planning for this encounter for decades. Everything about their apparent weakness had been carefully designed to make potential enemies underestimate them. "Admiral Carter," Kethvar said, trying to keep his voice steady, "perhaps we can negotiate a peaceful resolution to this situation." "I'm listening," Carter replied. As the two admirals began their careful diplomatic dance, the massive human warship, USS Defiance, moved into position directly in front of the Zephyrian flagship. The human vessel was 1.5 kilometers long, its dark hull covered with weapon ports and sensor arrays. Along its sides, smaller ships detached like deadly insects, leaving their nest. Lieutenant Hayes looked up from his communication station aboard the Liberty. "Captain, I'm counting over 300 fighter craft launching from the Defiance alone." Morrison nodded. Each of those fighters was probably larger than his entire ship. The human military had not just built big ships. They had built an entire secret navy complete with support craft, logistics vessels, and weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Admiral Kethvar watched the swarm of human fighters deploy around his fleet. Each small craft moved with precision and purpose, taking up positions that would allow them to attack from multiple angles. These were not the clumsy maneuvers of a primitive species. These were the tactics of experienced warriors. "Admiral," Sub-Commander Yixtal said quietly, "our weapons are powered and ready, but I do not recommend engaging. We would be destroyed within minutes." Kethvar looked at the tactical display one more time. 47 Zephyrian warships that had seemed so powerful when they entered this system were now trapped like insects in a web. The humans had revealed their true nature, and it was terrifying. For the first time in the history of the Zephyrian Empire, one of their fleets was completely outmatched. "Admiral Carter," Kethvar said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are your terms?" "Simple," Carter replied. "You leave our solar system immediately. You report back to your empire that humanity is not interested in becoming a client species, and you make sure that no one else comes here with demands like yours." Captain Morrison's voice added the final warning. "Admiral, humanity has been preparing for galactic contact for 50 years. We hoped for peace, but we prepared for war. Today, you've seen what we built in case someone threatened our home." Morrison paused, letting the weight of his words settle over both fleets. "We are not the primitive species you thought you were dealing with. We are not helpless, and we are not afraid." In the silence that followed, 47 alien warships that had conquered star systems found themselves unable to move. The hunters had become the hunted, and for the first time, the Zephyrian Empire faced a species that was more dangerous than they were. Admiral Kethvar looked at the massive human warships surrounding his fleet and realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity had announced its presence not as a weak species seeking protection, but as apex predators who had been quietly waiting for someone to threaten their home. And in that moment, the alien admiral understood what humans meant when they said they came in peace but were prepared for war. Station Commander Patricia Holmes had seen many strange things during her 20 years running Frontier Station Beta, but nothing had prepared her for the sight of a massive crystal ship being towed by a small cargo vessel. Control tower to Liberty. "Star," she called over the radio. "Captain Morrison, please explain what you are bringing to my station." Jake's voice came back, tired but cheerful. "Station Commander, we have 12 alien survivors aboard a disabled vessel, requesting emergency, docking and medical assistance." Patricia stared at her screens. First contact with an alien species was supposed to happen at Earth or one of the major colonies, not at a frontier trading post. But here it was, happening right in front of her. "Copy that, Liberty Star. Cleared for emergency docking at Bay. 7. Medical teams are standing by." Within hours, Frontier Station Beta was buzzing with activity. Word had spread quickly that real aliens were coming to the station. Merchants, miners, and colonists gathered in the observation decks to get their first look at non-human intelligence. Commander Zara Kethvani stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the human space station. She had expected a primitive facility, but what she found surprised her. The station was busy and crowded, filled with humans from many different backgrounds working together. "Welcome to Frontier Station Beta," Patricia said, extending her hand, in the human greeting gesture. "I am Commander Holmes." Zara awkwardly copied the handshake. "I am Commander Kethvani of the Velinari vessel Crystal Dawn. I thank you for allowing us to dock here. Any friend of Captain Morrison is welcome here," Patricia replied. "He has helped many people over the years. Good to see someone helping him for a change." As the Velinari crew settled into temporary quarters, they observed human society up close for the first time. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Engineer Morquin watched human technicians working on the station's systems. "They all have different skills," he told Science Officer Dralzeth. "But they work together without central planning. How is this possible?" Dralzeth was equally confused. "Their efficiency should be terrible. Too many people making decisions. But everything works smoothly." They watched a group of human engineers solve a power distribution problem. Instead of consulting computers or following strict procedures, the humans talked among themselves, shared ideas, and found a solution in minutes. "They trust each other to know their jobs," observed Communications Officer Telmar. "No one person controls everything." Meanwhile, Dr. Nina Foster was working with the station's medical team to treat the remaining Velinari injuries. The station's chief medical officer was amazed by what he saw. "Doctor, your treatment methods are remarkable," he told Nina. "Simple, direct, effective. We have been making medicine too complicated." Nina smiled. "Sometimes the old ways work best. The aliens taught me that too. Their bodies heal themselves if you just give them the right support." The biggest surprise came when the Velinari crew met the station's diverse population. Humans from dozens of different worlds lived and worked together. They had different skin colors, different languages, different customs, but they treated each other as equals. "How do you maintain order?" First Officer Gentar asked Commander Holmes during a tour of the station. "So many different people should cause conflict," Patricia laughed. "Oh, we have arguments all the time, loud ones. But we also have rules that everyone agrees to follow, and when there is real trouble, we help each other. Even people you do not know, especially people we do not know. Strangers might become friends." 3 days after arriving at the station, Commander Zara made a decision that would shock the entire Velinari government. She called her crew together for a meeting. "I have been thinking about our situation," she began. "The Velinari rescue ships will arrive in 2 weeks. They will take us home, and we will file our reports about the humans." "Good," said Gentar. "We can put this embarrassing incident behind us." "No," Zara said firmly. "We cannot." The room fell silent. "I am requesting permission for half our crew to remain here and study human society. We have much to learn from them." Several crew members started talking at once. Some were excited by the idea, others were horrified. "Commander," Drowl Seth protested, "staying with primitives will damage our careers. Our people will think we have lost our minds." "Perhaps we have," Zara replied. "Or perhaps we have finally found them." Engineer Morquin stepped forward. "I want to stay, Commander. I want to learn how humans make simple things work so well." Communications Officer Telmar nodded. "I want to study their languages and cultures. They have so much variety." Dr. Kethalaran surprised everyone by speaking up. "Their medical techniques saved lives that our computers said could not be saved. I must learn more." In the end, 6 Velinari crew members chose to stay with the humans. The other 6 decided to return home with the rescue ships. Captain Jake Morrison was not surprised by Zara's decision. Over the past week, he had watched both crews change and grow from their time together. "You are always welcome here," he told Zara. "But what will your government say?" "They will be angry at first," Zara admitted. "But eventually they will want to know what we learned. And when other species hear about humans, they will want to meet you too." She was right. Within months, word spread throughout the galaxy about the young human species that rescued strangers without asking for payment. Other alien civilizations began seeking out human ships, not for their technology or their weapons, but for their help and friendship. The Velinari government was indeed angry about Zara's decision, but when her reports reached the homeworld, describing human adaptability and kindness, some Velinari leaders began to reconsider their isolation policies. Jake Morrison returned to his cargo runs, but now his ship carried a mixed crew of humans and Velinari. The combination of human practicality and Velinari knowledge made them incredibly effective at solving problems other ships could not handle. More importantly, wherever they went, they spread a new idea throughout the galaxy. They showed other species that cooperation was stronger than competition, that diversity was better than uniformity, and that helping others was not a sign of weakness, but of strength. Radio Officer Carlos Hernandez was the first to notice the change. "Captain," he reported during one routine cargo run, "we are getting multiple distress calls, but they are not asking for just any rescue ship. They are specifically asking for human vessels." Jake smiled as he looked at his mixed crew working together on the bridge. Humans and Velinari side by side, solving problems and exploring the galaxy. "Set course for the nearest distress signal," he ordered. "Let us go help some people." As the Liberty Star jumped to hyperspace, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that day they found the Crystal Dawn drifting in the Crimson Nebula. They had set out to deliver cargo to a frontier colony. Instead, they had delivered something much more valuable to the entire galaxy. They had delivered hope. The universe was a big, dangerous place full of species that barely talked to each other. But now there was a new voice in the cosmic conversation. A voice that said helping others was not primitive or foolish, but the most advanced thing any civilization could do. And wherever that voice was heard, the galaxy became a little bit smaller, a little bit safer, and a lot more friendly. The humans had answered one distress call in deep space. In return, the galaxy had discovered something it never knew it was missing: neighbors who cared. 2 days had passed since the humans arrived at the Crystal Dawn. The Liberty Star was now connected to the alien ship by cables and temporary bridges. Both crews were working together, but it was not always easy. Commander Zara Kethavani walked through her ship, watching humans and Velinari work side by side. It was strange to see. The humans moved quickly and made decisions without asking permission. The Velinari were used to careful planning and following strict rules. "Commander," called Engineer Moore Quinn from across the engine room. "You need to see this." Zara made her way over to where Moore Quinn was working with Chief Engineer Lisa Bennett. The human woman was elbow-deep in a Velinari control panel, doing something that should have been impossible. She fixed the atmospheric recycling system, Moore Quinn explained, using spare parts from her own ship and some wire she found in our storage room. Lisa looked up and smiled, oil stains on her face. "It is not pretty, but it works. Your air will stay clean for weeks now instead of days." Zara stared at the repair work. It was crude compared to Velinari standards, but the readings showed it was working perfectly. "How did you know what to do? Our technology is completely different from yours. Basic principles are the same," Lisa said. "Air goes in, gets cleaned, comes back out. The methods are different, but the goal is the same." Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Dr. Nina Foster was learning things that amazed her. She had been treating injured Velinari crew members for 2 days, and her simple human medicine was working, better than expected. "Your healing methods are very effective," said Velinari Medical Officer Kath Laren. "Our advanced medical computers said these injuries would take weeks to heal, but your patients are already getting better." Nina checked on a Velinari crew member whose broken ribs she had wrapped 2 days ago. He was sitting up and moving around, something that should have taken much longer according to alien medical science. "Sometimes simple is better," Nina said. "Your computers think too much. They make everything complicated. But a broken bone just needs to be held straight while it heals. Your body does the rest." Kath Laren looked thoughtful. "We have forgotten this. We depend on our machines to tell us everything, but you trust your own knowledge and experience." In another part of the ship, Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez was having the most interesting job of all. She was learning to speak with the Velinari and teaching them about human culture. "Tell me about your worlds," requested Communications Officer Telmar as they worked on improving the translation system. Amy pulled out her tablet and showed him pictures of Earth. "This is where we come from. One world, many different places. Mountains, oceans, forests, deserts." Telmar studied the images with fascination. "So many different environments on one planet. The Velinari worlds are more organized. Each planet has one purpose, one climate, one type of city." "That sounds boring," Amy said honestly. "We like variety, different foods, different music, different ways of living. It makes life interesting." "But does it not cause conflict? When people are different, they fight." Amy nodded. "Sometimes. We had wars for a long time. But we learned that our differences make us stronger. When people think differently, they solve problems in new ways." This idea was difficult for Telmar to understand. Velinari society valued order and uniformity. Everyone had their place and their role. The idea that chaos could be helpful was confusing. Captain Jake Morrison was having his own educational experience. He was meeting with Commander Zara and her senior officers, trying to plan their next moves. "The nearest human space station is 6 days away at maximum tow speed," Jake explained. "We can get you there safely, but it will be slow." First Officer Gentar looked uncomfortable. "A human station? Surely there must be a Velinari facility closer." "The nearest Velinari base is 3 weeks away," said Science Officer Dralseth. "And we do not have enough life support for that long." "Commander," Zara made the decision. "We go to the human station." "Commander," Gentar protested, "what will our people think? We will be the first Velinari to visit a primitive alien facility." "They will think we are alive," Zara replied firmly. "That is more important than pride." As the days passed, something unexpected began to happen. The two crews started to understand each other better. The humans learned that the Velinari were not cold or unfriendly, just very formal and careful. The Velinari learned that humans were not primitive savages, just young and enthusiastic. Security Chief Tony Walker was teaching Velinari Security Commander Velthor about human military tactics. "We do not always follow the plan," Tony explained. "Sometimes you have to adapt quickly when things go wrong." "But how do you coordinate without strict orders?" Velthor asked. "We trust each other. Each person knows their job and does it. When something unexpected happens, we figure it out together." Velthor found this idea both frightening and exciting. Velinari military units followed detailed plans created by computers. The idea of making decisions in the moment was new to him. Chief Science Officer Kara Phillips was having similar conversations with Dralzeth about human science and exploration. "You explore space without knowing what you will find?" Dralzeth asked in amazement. "That is the point," Kara replied. "If we already knew what was out there, it would not be exploration. We go to learn new things." "But it is so dangerous. So many things could go wrong." "Yes, but so many wonderful things could go right. We found you, did not we?" Dralzeth had no answer for that. The biggest revelation came when pilot Steve Martinez was showing some Velinari crew members around the Liberty Star. The human ship was cramped and simple compared to the Crystal Dawn, but it had something the alien ship lacked. "Everything here has been repaired or modified," observed one of the Velinari engineers. "Multiple times. That is how we keep old ships running," Steve explained. "When something breaks, we fix it. When we need it to do something new, we modify it. This ship is 50 years old, but it still works because we take care of it." The Velinari engineer looked confused. "When our ships develop problems, we replace them with new ones. It is more efficient." "Maybe," Steve said. "But this ship has character. It has history. Every repair tells a story about the people who worked on it." Later that evening, Commander Zara found herself alone with Captain Jake in the Crystal Dawn's observation deck. Through the transparent crystal walls, they could see both ships connected together, traveling slowly through space. "Your people are remarkable," Zara said quietly. "We have watched other species for centuries, but we never really talked to them. We assumed they had nothing to teach us." Jake nodded. "We all have something to learn from each other. Your technology is amazing, but our people are good at making things work even when they should not. Why do you help others so easily?" Zara asked. "Even strangers you have never met?" Jake thought about it for a moment. "Because we know what it feels like to be alone and scared. Every human has been lost or helpless at some point. When we see others in trouble, we remember how it felt, so we help." Zara was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "Perhaps we have forgotten how to be helpless. We have been advanced for so long that we forgot what it means to need others." "It is never too late to remember," Jake replied. Outside the observation deck, the stars moved slowly past as the two ships continued their journey together. Neither crew knew it yet, but they were carrying more than just people toward safety. They were carrying the seeds of a new understanding that would change the galaxy forever. Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive alien ship on his screen. Even broken and drifting, the Crystal Dawn was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. It looked like it was made of living crystal that caught and reflected light from distant stars. "Okay, people, we have a rescue operation," Jake announced to his crew. "This is not going to be easy." Chief Engineer Lisa Bennett was studying the alien ship's design through the sensors. "Captain, I have no idea how to dock with that thing. Our docking ports will not fit their ship. The whole design is completely different." Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez looked up from her station. "I am getting more messages from them. They are sending technical diagrams of their ship, but I cannot understand most of it." Security Chief Tony Walker was watching his tactical display. "Captain, their ship is much bigger than ours. If something goes wrong, we could be in serious trouble." Jake nodded. "I know the risks, but they asked for help, and we said yes. We figure it out as we go." Dr. Nina Foster had been studying the medical scans they had taken of the aliens. "Captain, I am seeing some injured crew members on their ship. Whatever happened to them, some of their people are hurt. Can you help them? Jake asked. I do not know. Their biology is completely different from ours. But I will try. Meanwhile, on the Crystal Dawn, Commander Zara Kethvani was dealing with her own problems. Half her crew thought accepting help from the primitive humans was shameful. The other, half just wanted to survive. Commander, said First Officer Gentar, this is not right. We are Velinari. We do not need help from lesser species. Science Officer Dralzeth agreed. Our people will be embarrassed when they learn we were rescued by primitives. It will damage our reputation throughout the galaxy. But Engineer Morquin had different ideas. Our reputation will not matter if we are dead. Besides, look at their ship. It may be primitive, but everything works. When was the last time you could say that about any Velinari vessel? Zara had been thinking the same thing. The human ship was old and simple, but all their systems showed green on the sensors. No errors, no failures, no complicated problems. Just basic technology that did its job. The humans are trying to dock with us, reported Communications Officer Telmar. But their ship cannot connect to our docking ports. Show me, Zara ordered. On the main screen, they watched the small human ship trying to get close to the Crystal Dawn. It looked like a tiny metal bug next to a giant crystal flower. Every time they tried to dock, the ships would not fit together properly. This is impossible, muttered Dralzeth. Their technology is too primitive to interface with ours. But then something unexpected happened. The humans stopped trying to dock normally. Instead, they moved their ship to a cargo bay door on the side of the Crystal Dawn. What are they doing? Asked Gentar. On the Liberty Star, mechanical specialist, Ryan Kelly had an idea. Captain, we cannot dock normally, but we can get into their cargo bay. I can rig up a temporary airlock using our emergency equipment. Will it work? Jake asked. It should. Their ship has atmosphere, so if I can seal the connection, we can walk between ships. Lisa Bennett looked worried. Ryan, that is very dangerous. One mistake and we lose air for both ships. I know, Ryan said, but it is the only way. Jake made the decision. Do it, but be careful. Ryan grabbed his tools and headed for the airlock. Within an hour, he had built a temporary bridge between the ships using plastic sheeting, metal clamps, and a lot of hope. It was not pretty, but it worked. Airlock sealed and pressurized, Ryan reported. We have a connection. The first human to meet aliens in person was Dr. Nina Foster. She put on her medical kit and stepped through the makeshift airlock into the alien ship. What she found amazed her. The inside of the Crystal Dawn was even more beautiful than the outside. The walls were made of smooth crystal that glowed with soft light. Everything was elegant and graceful, like walking inside a work of art. But the ship was also clearly in trouble. Broken crystal panels sparked with electricity. The air smelled of burned circuits. And lying on the floor were several injured Velinari. Crew members. Oh my, Nina whispered as she saw the aliens up close for the first time. The Velinari were tall and thin, with blue skin that had a slight shimmer. Their eyes were large and dark, and they moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy. But right now, they looked scared and hurt. Nina knelt beside the nearest injured alien. His leg was bent at an odd angle, clearly broken. She could not talk to him, but she could see pain in his large eyes. It is okay, she said softly, even though he could not understand her words. I am here to help. She opened her medical kit and started working. Human medicine was simple compared to Velinari technology, but broken bones were broken bones. She splinted his leg using basic materials and gave him painkillers that seemed to work on his alien biology. Meanwhile, Captain Jake and Lisa Bennett were meeting with Commander Zara and her senior officers. The language barrier made communication slow, but they were getting basic ideas across using drawings and hand gestures. Their quantum drive is completely destroyed, Lisa reported after looking at the alien engine room. I cannot fix it. I do not even understand how it works. But can we tow them? Jake asked. Lisa thought about it. Maybe. Their ship is much bigger than ours, but it is also lighter than it looks. If we can rig up a towing cable, we might be able to pull them to the nearest space station. Commander Zara was having her own conversation with her crew. Through their translation equipment, she was learning about the humans. They were young as a species, having only reached the stars. A few hundred years ago, their technology was primitive, but they were helping anyway. Why? She asked through the translator. Why do you help us when you get nothing in return? Jake thought about the question. Because you need help, he said simply. That is what people do. When someone is in trouble, you help them. The concept seemed to confuse the Velonari. In their society, everything had a purpose and a place. Help was given based on status and mutual benefit. The idea of helping strangers for no reward was strange to them. But as the hours passed, they began to understand. Dr. Foster worked tirelessly to treat their injured. Ryan Kelly used simple human tools to repair systems that Velonari technology could not fix. Lisa Bennett shared her knowledge freely, even though the humans got nothing in return. Their ship may be primitive, Morquin told Zara quietly, but their hearts are not. As the rescue operation continued, both crews learned something important. The Velonari discovered that advanced technology meant nothing if it failed when you needed it most. The humans learned that intelligence and wisdom came in many forms, but the biggest lesson was yet to come. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe was not advanced weapons or sophisticated computers, but the simple willingness to help others when they needed it most. The rescue was just beginning, but already both species were changing in ways they did not yet understand.